Alright, now I want to put this flat side on the coaming for the superstructure on the boat. This is really quite difficult, and I've been looking at the plans, as you've seen, and those plans really show quite a bit of detail for another model, but not the Nautilus. So what I've been doing is basically trying to work out how thick this side coaming, or how deep that side coaming should be. One thing I know about it is that it's pretty much dead flat. It curves in a bit at the bow, but that's about it. And what I've noticed is that the sail, if you look at pictures of the Nautilus, if the sail is, and I've just used a ruler, if the sail is, say, 24 millimeters high, and this is this will be 8. And I took another picture and another measurement at another picture and found it was like that. So that actually is pretty much what we want it to be. Now the sail is in fact on the model 83 millimeters high. So I can now compute what that looks like horizontally, not vertically. No, vertically, but not with the angle. So what is that? 28. So it should be around about 28 when viewed from that angle. Alright, so what's it really going to be? So I know that the sail in actual fact is, I'll just double check this, is 84 millimeters high. This is clearly 3:1, therefore this depth will be a third of that, which is 28. 8 threes are 24. Alright, so I know that that's 28, but this is the view of the side of the boat, and that is the coaming. That distance is 28. So it's not exactly 28, it's actually longer than that again. Now the other thing that I've figured is, once again, looking at the bow. If the bow's like that, I've used the plans to work out at the 70 mark, it's around about, once again, and this is looking at it this way, at the 70 mark it's 51 deep. And it goes up like this, and it's obviously going to go to the what we want at 24. The way it does it though is like this. So we'll now get this as close to right as we can. There's the bow of the boat. Here is the, I think it's a sonar coaming, I'm not exactly sure, but I know that just after this the whole thing levels out, so that's 24. But just after that first, here's the sail, it actually has this little loop down. That's exaggerated, so I'm going to have to make it a bit more than 24. I think I'm going to have to make it 25 and then just shave it back. So this is therefore going to be, from my view, probably I'm going to cut it at 25. From 70 in, I know that I'm down at 51. And I've got various measurements in here, so I can draw that line. This is tricky. Let's go. So this is the line on the side of the boat. I've done that as obviously as closely as I can. No way of doing it better than this. I think you just have to freehand it on, use a ruler and measure things. Once again, it's a matter of measuring the vertical position of the line, recognizing that the panel is going to be on an angle. I've already cut a hole here for the anchor, as you saw, and that's all going to go. So I've cut this now out of 2 mil, or is it 3? Can't remember. I think it's 3 mil Perspex. I've left the paper on for now. I don't do that in the future. It can be helpful, but it's also helpful when you've got Perspex open because you can see what you're doing on the other side. Now I've recognized as I've moved along here that this is imposing a shape on the hull that I didn't anticipate. And I thought this would fit nicely, but in fact it's not. So I'm working away on this, thinning obviously feathering the edges so that they fit nicely, and I've dug a huge slot into my bow after all this time. It looks horrific. It will all be fine in the wash. And now when I hold it on and I press it down, there's quite a lot of force involved in holding that down, and I know that that's not going to happen. That's not going to work. So I'm continuing now just to prepare the way to stick it down, and continuing just to try it all out. I'm pretty happy with how it all looks. It's just the bow that's the problem. So I've stuck it all on now, and you can see the way this is pulled away at the top. It's really quite significant. It will pull in and it will look okay, but it won't without a lot of force, and it's going to pull away at the top as well. But the shape is right and everything's fine. So before we take another step, I'm now going to do something rather messy. I'm going to cut chunks of the hull out in slots, because above the waterline this boat's got to be pretty light, and this material simply isn't needed. And the cut-off disc works really well for this. I'm just taking chunks off and throwing them away as I go. And it's remarkable how thick this hull is and how heavy. So that's going to go. I'm going to lighten the upper half, because the lighter it is, the less buoyancy you need to push it up above the surface. So we're back to square one. It's all now ready to be fastened, and I've glued most of it on, as you can see. Now what I'm noticing here, this is the Perspex. If you apply a bit of heat, a hot air gun probably would be okay, but the flame is good as long as it's held quite a way away. I've noticed that this bends really quite nicely, and once of course it's bent, it holds its position, which makes it very useful, I've got to say. I'm just blowing it there. So here we go. I'm going to use some heat on this panel, and I'm going to use the heat to enable me to easily bend that into place. I'm taking this very, very carefully, as you can imagine, and trying not to burn my thumb at the same time. Not an easy thing. But there it is. It's now glued in place. Looks very messy, and I've had to sand the bow because the bow was too proud, and I've had to sand it all back. This is now the stern, and I'm using some flashing here just to make a template to show me how I can make this piece of Perspex perfectly to size. So I've got a piece of Perspex. Once again, it's 2 mil Perspex. Fastening that in place, I've feathered it in the top and the bottom, and pretty happy with how all of this looks, especially now that I know that I can use some heat and make this do what I want. So that's really good, and it's really strong and it's really flat. It's great. So I've glued them into place. Just holding that. No, I haven't glued it here, have I? I've just taped it into place. Just testing how the top is going to fit. And now I'm using a bit of heat before it goes on. It's very helpful. So once again, before I fasten anything in place, out comes the material that I just don't really need.